Hi.
It is just me. Like,
Nope, you're one of many. Hi,
okay, good. Okay.
Yahweh, is that how I say your name?
Yes, that's right.
Hi
Joey.
there. Howdy, John, Lars, Alina. This is the for those of us old enough, this is the romper room of welcomes. Alina, I see you, Alex, Sophie. It's a party ready to begin. Thanks for coming, everybody. Oh, congratulations on the wedding there, Susan. Looks recent. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. It was a COVID wedding. We had to elope real quick.
Yeah, good. My daughter's doing that next weekend. So
Congratulations to her.
thank you very, very much. Hi, Stella, Rob.
Hi.
Good to see you guys here. We were just going through and getting everybody to share what they did over their summer vacation. Oh, wait, I spent all my time working on a project.
Same with me.
Yep.
Well, over summer vacation, I finished the project I submitted. So
Feeling good now? You got some free time, eh?
yeah, now I'm working, so ain't no
Oh
free
yeah,
time for me.
perfect. Isn't it strange when work and school collide?
Yeah, but I graduated in January, so
Oh, good.
I look
So
for
you've
a
got the
job,
time.
and yeah, I now work as a freelance designer. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
Where are you located?
Antwerp in Belgium.
Great. It's been exciting to see all the entries come in. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. We hope it's been very valuable to you. We know it's been valuable to us. Jurassic Park, the line that life finds a way. When I talked to my friend Chris Lang at Europa Park, and he was talking about putting in water parks and that process, he said water finds a way, usually to ruin everything. And here we got the COVID thing, and in many ways, I'm seeing creativity finds a way. No matter what, we're seeing everybody have to flex to figure out the best way to accomplish things, and it's just excited to see where this takes each one of us. So much positive work is going on, and it's always my constant prayer that the positive work is going to push down the negative, and I'm excited about today. Nathan, do we have a quorum, or is this our team? You want to?
Yeah, I think we're at 1:07 p.m. and we want to respect everyone's time as much as possible. So
Okay.
I know that most of the judges and most of the participants said that they would be able to make it today. And so if they're running late, I guess they can just join whenever they come on in.
Great.
And we'll let them in as that happens. But yeah, if you could just get started, we have plenty of judges here available. So and we can talk about each project.
Well, there's 22 projects, which is quite a few, and we're gonna work through this. Everybody, we're gonna give about 8 minutes per project to walk through, and this is in order for us to keep our time going. I've got my clock ready, tick tock. And I will stop the conversations at 8 minutes. If they don't go to 8 minutes, congratulations, we won ourselves some extra time in our day. But we wanted to give the judges an opportunity to give feedback to each one of the projects. Some some of the feedback is going to be very direct and very right on the point. Some of the feedback might not get any have any direct feedback that's super useful, but that's okay. We've got the time to do it, and all of the judges have in the process put together some of their thoughts into the projects. And so we want to give you a chance to get direct feedback from each one of them. And we're going to start today with the ultimate food fight. So let's see here. Do we have the maker of Ultimate Food Fight here on the line?
Yeah, that's my project.
Is that you, Reed?
Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to, just to be a very good moderator, I'm going to hit start on this timer. Judges, because we're trying to keep to time, I'd love it if the first time that you give some feedback, if you would introduce yourself, give a brief sentence or two of your background, and then you only have to do that once. And then as we move forward, feel free to jump right in. And so, Reed, thank you so much for submitting the Ultimate Food Fight. Really fun, and would like to get feedback from the judges. Whoever would like to go first. Or else I'll call on you. Hey, Louis. Yes, please do.
Hi, Reed. How are you doing? I'm Louis Alfieri with Raven Sun Creative. We're an experiential design and consulting firm working all over the world. And my history, previous to starting our company 9.5 years ago, was as a senior creative director for Universal Studios, where I had the great opportunity to work with Nate on projects like Rocket, Transformers, Revenge of the Mummy, and others. So I wanted to say, it's a really interesting premise that you submitted. I think that it's fascinating in that there's a lot of opportunity in what you're doing to kind of create a functional business model which could be adapted. There are many celebrities during COVID that have explored this kind of space, such as Al Di Meola has a dinner experience that he's been producing in his home. Some of the other celebrity chefs have been offering visitation both in their home and to send ingredients to you and do a video interactive series during that time. Some of the there's a really creative sense to what you've submitted, but there's also some, I would say from a constructive standpoint, it's very high conceptually, but some of the application about how some of those things would be done is glossed over a bit, where when you pitch your idea, and I would say this is important as you think about what you do with owners in the future, the more you can lead people down the path of understanding how you're bringing them functionality and value and to kind of comprehend the whole experience beyond the concept will help you sell your idea more. So I think there was there's some great ideas there, but they need a bit more detail or fleshed out in terms of technically or operationally how you would deliver those so that you could compel the owner to take your idea up and run with it. And I would say just in general, anywhere that you can help show them where you're adding value or how you're articulating your idea at kind of an elevator statement component and lead them there from the graphics helps ensure that your idea will be picked up and taken further. You don't want them to gloss over your idea or your perspective or your pitch because they don't get it. So I think that's just a message to help you. I don't want to talk too long so that other folks can talk. So thanks very much for your submission.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. I think Theron, you were about to go. Was that you?
Yeah, I was inhaling, but Louis beat me to the punch. So I agree with everything that Louis said. Hi, Reed. My name is Theron Skis. I run a little boutique firm called the Designers Creative Studio. Spent a large portion of my career with Walt Disney Imagineering. I liked your concept. I thought the artwork was great. The thinking behind the props and the set pieces, and I think all of your design styling I liked, and I did appreciate the consistency that you brought throughout your presentation. One of the areas that I wanted to lean into to encourage you is that you have to not, when you're creating a story for an attraction or some immersive venue, experience venue like this, it's not just about the story itself. That's critical, obviously, but the story, unlike film, television, and books, has to invite the audience to participate and interact. They have to have a real reason for wanting to join and be a part of it. And I thought that that's where your story needed some help was, why would people want to be engaged in this? Are they a character? Are they a part of the solution to a problem that's presented itself? Do they have a specific role to play within the story? Something along those lines was kind of my feedback for you to take away. Really, from the very moment of promotion, think of the attraction poster, right? What's the reasoning? What's the why for the guests to be involved? That's what I'd leave with you.
Thanks very much, Theron. Anybody else? Oh, Tom, I'll take yours. I think you're muted, but we're ready to go.
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Tom Morris, and I'm retired, but I spent a lifetime at Walt Disney Imagineering, and it was a great ride. So I was going to agree perfectly with what Theron just said, and also what Lewis said, and adding to Lewis's point, showing you don't have to do the whole kind of metric analysis, but giving kind of a just at the tip of your thumb kind of indication of throughput and how many people you expect could reasonably experience this attraction within an hour or within a day is helpful for kind of getting it grounded into a business idea. And not to put so much emphasis on the business side, but you do have to kind of show how it is going to be achievable and a reasonable idea. So showing the metrics of it, which isn't as hard as it may sound, it's kind of an exercise in timing, and it's almost like music in a way. You have so many bars and so many notes within a given time frame, and it's a good exercise to go through so that you can say confidently that this is something that more than 30 people a day can go through. That's my little piece of that.
Hi, Reed. I'm Pete. I'm from Holiviz. Before joining Holiviz, who make technology-driven experiences and attractions, I was with Merlin Entertainments for 12 years, looking after a lot of live shows, immersive experiences. So I really loved your kind of concept of making a kind of a culinary experience and a walkthrough, kind of fusing the two together and making it super active. One thing just in terms of practicality is sometimes when you've got such heavy interactions, going too hard on a story and character can be a bit overwhelming to guests. They need to be kind of led through and guided through. And so, whilst I absolutely love the kind of style that you took for your storyboards, at times I think there should have been a bit of consideration for that. And then just a note on whilst you're telling the attraction story, your pitch has its own narrative as well that draws people into your visual style right from the very get-go. I think that will help, but really good job.
Thanks all. We got to 8 minutes, but Reed, I'm going to do you a favor. You get an extra minute and a half because we did you had to absorb all the introductions. So if anybody else has something else, I'll give you an opportunity. Thanks, Thomas.
Can you hear me? Good.
Yes, we can.
Cool. So I'm Thomas Kelly. I'm an art director here in London at Scruffy Dog. Been here for 3 years. So I agree with everybody else. Just in terms of time, I'll just get to the point. But yeah, so my main thing was kind of thinking about where this could go next. So I'm not sure if you want to develop it further, but I definitely, when I was reading through it, got the sense that everybody else did, where the artwork really popped to me at the end. And it was also one of those projects that was very diverse in terms of where I could see this. It could be at a mall, it could be as small as at being in a mall, or it could be at a theme park, large scale. But going back to what your purpose is for this actual attraction, try and reduce waste and things. Something to keep in mind, I think that would be really cool for you to explore if you were to do this further, is to see if you could reach it doing like festivals and trying to go a little bit more mobile with it. So taking your story that you have already and maybe going in a practical sense that way. It's becoming very, very popular throughout the world now, just these kind of pop-up attractions and things. And I think this could be really, really something that could go on for years and years and years, if you and you could actually kind of grow it from there. So I just encourage you to really keep pushing this, because I think it's a really cool idea, and I think the concept and the passion behind it is not going to go anywhere in the near future. So good job.
Great. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Reed. Congratulations. Just a really great.
Thank you all so much.
Awesome. Well, next up, we've got Chance Steiner and Diorama Alpha. I don't see Chance on here, but correct me if I'm wrong, if we should just move forward if Chance isn't on here, Nathan?
No, actually, we do want to give them feedback because it will be recorded. And so we want to have everyone get a chance to have some comments. There were several folks that emailed us and saying, hey, can you please record it, because we have some other conflict, but we do want to know what the feedback is.
Okay, good. So we're not talking behind anybody's back. They're all going to hear this. So keep your comments kind there, folks. I mean, poor Chance, he's just sitting over there trying to do his job. All right, folks, let's hear Diorama Alpha, your feedback on that one.
Oh, I remember that one. Yes. Well, it was interesting. I love the blacklight element of it, and I've always been a fan of well done, blacklight displays and attractions. And so it caught my attention, of course, but I have to be honest, that I didn't quite understand exactly what the application was, and maybe there was not an intention for that. Sometimes ideas just come from nowhere. They need to be incubated, and just because they're not fully developed at birth doesn't mean that there isn't some interesting potential for it. But that's what we need to see, is what, now what is the actual application for this idea.
Yes, go ahead, Louis.
I think that the artist that put this together, certainly has a lot of skills. You got the sense from building the model and some of the components that they put together that, they're a generalist and have exposure to a number of things. I would say to the artist to think about the nature of how they're presenting themselves and kind of increasing the level of professionalism about how they articulate their idea and how they present themselves on video. While in this case, often it was informal, some of the commentary that the designer incorporated didn't necessarily benefit their intent on enhancing the idea where they went. So I think it's an opportunity to kind of self-reflect on how to present themselves and elevate their idea to ensure that it's received by everybody optimally.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add to that, I think don't apologize for your work straight away, because as soon as you start to apologize, we as an audience start looking for cracks. And we don't know at the start of a presentation that there's any problem with it. If you just sell that and it's great and it's your best idea possible, that's what we believe, and we ride on that wave of confidence. So that was a big one for me right at the start. But as Louis said, some great skills there. Just work on that presentation style.
Super feedback.
I'll just jump in too. Sorry, real quickly. I agree. The presentation felt a bit unfinished, if I'm remembering this correctly. And one piece of advice that I would give, which kind of echoes what everybody else is saying, is when you think of a concept, think of it in in buckets, right? It's the big idea, it's how it applies to people, and then how you're going to basically produce it, right? The why, the how, and the what, if you like Simon Sinek. Also, when you're going through a presentation, think of it in terms of journalism, right? When you read that top line, that's the most important thing that you want everybody to take away. And then all of the information in descending order of hierarchy is less and less important until the very end of the article. If you've kept somebody's attention all the way through, it's just some really great bits of the story. Your presentation should be the same way. You should start off with exactly the most important information. You need to, just like a film or a great book, attract your audience's attention right away and stay consistent all the way through. I just give you the feedback as you're organizing, as the designer here is organizing their thoughts about how to create something. It's good to have a methodology and a process to your creation, but it's also really important to have that's a similar methodology in your presentation of that idea. So that, because you're always going to be presenting to people that you want to transition into constituents, right? People who love what you do, who support what you do, who get behind you. So you're constantly, it feels like, in the state of pitch. And I know those of us that work for large companies or any size company that has been in the pitch realm, even after projects are approved and they're being designed or built, you constantly have other audience members that you're going back and re-pitching to get them on board. So it's a skill, once developed and refined, you'll use for your whole career.
Yeah, it's great. MK, I saw you just popped in. We are talking about giving feedback on Diorama Alpha. Christian or Peter, do you have anything to add?
Sorry, I'm muted. I have 2 mute buttons. You know, I reviewed this and I will tell you that I agree with what everyone else said. I ultimately do feel that the presentation, and then the project itself, will admirable because it does show specific skill set. It really was about a third of the way through the process. I mean, ultimately, I think that more could have been done in terms of placing the actual, you know, in many ways it would be a prop, it could be a previs, but placing it within an actual purpose, within an actual storyline. And then ultimately, in terms of presenting, Peter, I think you said this, and that you don't want to apologize up front because it really does immediately paint you and paint your work in a poor light. So I think continuing to practice that and making the best of even the current situation is about the best that you can do.
Great, thanks. I have time for one more.
I know that, so the students aren't on this call, right?
Yes, there's the students, most of them are here with us. Some of them weren't able to make it for the feedback, but we're recording it and sharing it with them later.
Thank you, because I have a lot of notes. Obviously, we want to pick and choose which ones are a priority for feedback. And for a Diorama Alpha, in the review, it felt a little bit like they weren't clear on the assignment. So sometimes it's hard to give feedback when this might have been a great submission for another possible challenge. Yeah, but a lot of my feedback revolves around the fact that it didn't necessarily feel like the right submission for what we were asking. If that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Peter, I see you unmuted. Did you want to share on this one? I got a few seconds left.
I've already given feedback on this. Oh, different Peter, sorry.
No, I think you guys have pretty much covered everything I was going to add to it.
Okay, great. We are on to Alina Holder with Chicago Spec. There's Alina. We have you on with us. Glad to have you. Thank you so much for sharing your creativity. Folks, let's give her what we got. Thanks, Louis. Go right ahead.
Hi, Alina. Thank you very much for your submission. It was really creative, and you certainly put a lot of effort and work into it. There were a lot of fun ideas. The idea of presenting a vertical water park was certainly something that was very interesting. I think there were, you focused very much on the conceptual end of it. So I would say just, as I've spoken about a little bit earlier, these kinds of attractions work when you kind of balance story, technical, operational, and budgetary. And in the sensibility of what you've done, there were some from operating a water park and the nature of how you looked at kind of the gating and the function of that. There would be more research I think you'd want to do in terms of analyzing, how that works operationally. Also an interesting blend of what is available free to the public and what you want to do depending on how you look at your model. And then I would say, just think in terms of kind of how the family unit will go through your experience, how parents might get separated from a group in terms of the vertical theme park, how they want to keep track of their children, what might work from a functional sense of how you want to group your story, how you want to group your organization in that format. I would also, say to you to think holistically. You've done a really interesting job of maybe looking at this symbolic element that's there in terms of using the fire hydrant in Chicago. But I would say in some questions I had were, how are you treating the walls or the ceiling in that space? You were thinking, from an industrial standpoint, possibly it was hard to gauge in some of the narrative in the experience. Was that kind of industrial inside, which might be a little dirty? And in a water park, just think about kind of how the guests or how the public's going to receive that. And I would say, how to think about how are you going to use sun in a nature, in a vertical theme park. How would you think about projecting light or using windows or other elements to kind of create a holistic experience? Or if you were going to use painting on the interior to help make sure you think holistically about pitching that concept. And I would say, just think about how would I articulate this? Think about when you're going to take your restaurant, for example. You pitched this idea of this beautiful restaurant in the facility, but you also have people in bathing suits that are in there. So there is some in the program that you thought about. There are a lot of interesting ideas individually, but you also need to think about how you want to blend all of those together, because people in a fine restaurant and people in bathing suits, they're not going to mix necessarily, unless when you articulate the idea, you articulate that there would be certain times of day that there would be access for these functions. So you could help the owner or the future developer or the investor that might participate in your project to understand how you're thinking of the flow of that and the mix of those guests. Great job. Keep going.
Thank you.
So I really love the fusion of themed entertainment and public art. I thought that was a really interesting kind of take on things. I think we as themed entertainment designers are always looking for ways and new avenues to kind of find differences in the work that we do, because it's a very busy industry when it comes to themes. So I thought using that was really cool, and it kind of pushes it into that experiential world as well, and in the same way that kind of retail is coming into themed entertainment. It's a lovely little kind of melding pot in the middle. So I thought that was great. I think as Louis said, I think operationally that was where I had the biggest issue with it. Getting people to move over vertical levels is really challenging, as they can kind of, for a sprawling water park, it's nice just to kind of stumble onto a little area, but when you've got to go up and down, it becomes slightly more onerous for the guest. So I would have loved to have seen more interesting ways of getting people from different levels, maybe using a water slide, a water coaster that would take them up and down, or different things like that. So just thinking about the operation, and in addition to that, just I know on the entry level, I think we just go straight in. But have we thought about things like ticketing and queuing and back of house areas, that kind of stuff, which just needs to be considered in your plans. But really good job.
If I can just piggyback on that, like what they already said, wildly innovative, right? Like completely unfeasible. But that's what I kind of love about it, because anyone in their sane mind would be like stopped immediately at this and not develop it any further. Just the expense of the land, the weight of the water, hygiene issues, prime real estate. But you were like, forget budget. I'm not going to think about that. And by pushing forward, like there's like nothing like this in the world. This is an extremely original idea. And one of the things that works in your favor is you only sort of hinted at a theme. And so we filled in the blanks. And when people who it's like, oh, it could be this, it could be that, right? And so we get really excited about things that you didn't necessarily actually say. You just kind of hinted at it. So part of me wants this to exist, but it probably never will.
That's great.
I get
Thomas?
excited about oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I just get excited when you start looking at how densely populated urban developed areas are, and the ideas of themed venues taking over sprawling hectares probably becomes less and less likely. This idea of something very condensed that could live on a smaller footprint in an urban area, I think is really fascinating. I think as designers, we should be pushing into those spaces, figuring out how to monopolize, smaller footprints and input a whole lot of entertainment, lodging, dining, retail, etc., play park into a more condensed space. Having spent time in the cruise ship world, that is quite literally what we do. Is the circulation is vertical as much as it is horizontal, and I just, what I find exciting about it is just the challenge of how we should be thinking that way going forward within this industry.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the hardest thing to do is to come up with a weird idea that's appealing. And to me, this is a weird idea that's appealing and perfectly suited for Chicago, where there's already these iconic follies, if you will, beautiful follies, that are very photogenic, and everyone loves to have their picture taken in front of it. So that sometimes it's just the hardest thing is I want to do that. I want to go up in there. Obviously, there's a lot of operational and practical challenges to this, but I do think that if one were to take a closer look at it, that somewhere there's a combination that would unlock kind of the puzzle to make this work. So I think that there is a possibility that this is a feasible idea, but it really would require a lot of homework and a lot of expertise to look at it to make it work. And I agree with making the movement from level to level part of the show and part of the fun. Even glass elevators and tubes or something could really be wild. And so I would love to take this idea and see if it could really work. I'm not going to. I'm a little busy, but it's the kind of thing that I would love. It's so crazy, yet there is a seed of feasibility to it that it makes me want to dive into it and like a puzzle, make it work.
Thomas, 10 seconds.
10 seconds. I would just say that I agree with everybody else, but also part of what's really great about our industry and also having that in an industrial setting is not only inviting or having a great experience with the guests that are already in there, but also for the ones that are about to come or going to come. So I think you could incorporate some sort of show element at the end of every day or whatever. What if there's just some big geyser that happened, or maybe projections on the outside that would tell some Saudi prince who would probably be the one to build this, something to entice that much more people to get in here, selling tickets and things like that. And you could really sell that off to really check that box in terms of money, which is the problem as well as the feasibility. But really great work. That's it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Alina. Now we're going to Wrath of the Scorpion Queen, Jacob Young. Jamie, I want to make sure you get an opportunity to chime in, so don't leave us hanging. The judges are going straight to their decks and going, okay, wait, what this one was.
I know I need to refresh my memory on, each of these?
So I would say, I guess I'll jump in and start. I really felt like you had made a strong effort in character design, that you've done a lot of research and you had a lot of, good effort in your writing. There were a number of allusions to different things happening with the different characters, your guides, the spirits, and the symbolism. I would say that from my perspective, I got a real sense of character development, but I was less clear about the activity and function of what was happening in the attraction overall. And I would have liked a bit more information or narrative or connective tissue to help me really understand kind of the creative intent and the application of all this investment that you had made in backstory. Like you did a really, a great investment in terms of your world building, but I didn't necessarily understand all of the functions and applications kind of going beyond that. So I think it's a question of where you're at in the development of the attraction process. I think you've done all of the backstory and the heavy lifting in your world building. I'd like to get a sense of how that works in the attraction so it doesn't diminish the nature of what you've created. This work you've put in is helping us kind of take it over the finish line. And I would recommend in the future to kind of balance that out. Even if you're running out of time in developing the project, think about how to balance that in your presentation so that it doesn't diminish all this effort that you're putting in. It's a great job, and it would be great to see the concept go further.
I'll just quickly tag onto what Lewis said. You pretty much embodied what I was going to say on the character development. I really liked the artwork and the thought that went into that. But unfortunately, that great work is what made the pencil sketches really show up as really lacking. So my encouragement to you would be to not include the pencil sketches, right? Unless they are key to the story development, then take the time to at least develop them to a level that was close to your characters, or at least had color, or there was such a huge difference between the two. I thought it really was a record scratch. So where possible, always default to the best presentation that consistently tells your story.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's super nice about this competition is it is a showcase, right? It's a showcase of individual student skill sets. And some of those were super easy to pull out, right? Like the line quality, the figures were beautifully expressive, the graphic design was great. So it's easy to say, yep, there's a person who can do that on my team. My first line here is: a group of investors enter a Scorpion attraction and do things, do something. But so that's like what everyone else was saying. It's what I don't know what it is. It's got a bit of a great movie ride vibe, which is nice because we all know what that is. We're like, yep, that works. And so we give it credit for an existing thing that we know already functions. But one little note here is Egypt is a real place with real people and real history, and you have to be super careful about the perception of misappropriation if you're using a real place. So there's lots of ways to do that. You either get a subject matter expert on board, or you let your guests know right from the beginning that what this is fantastical or whimsical. But particularly when you're dealing with real places that have real history, you want to make sure that you're super credible in terms of how you present it. There was a couple of pretty tired stereotypes in some of the character design, beautifully designed, right? But at a high level, they were pretty stereotypical. So just be mindful of that when you start an attraction based upon history. Sure, it was beautiful to look at.
Yeah, I got the impression that what you were doing was creating the characters that would then be recalled into some of the action within the scenes later on, which I thought was kind of a clever thing to do. But there were just too many characters to introduce an audience to that many characters in the queue line. Is going to be nigh on impossible for them to remember who it is and what they do and who they are. And when it becomes too confusing, guests just tend to switch off and their enjoyment of the attraction just kind of plummets. So I think just be careful with putting too many people in. It can work, especially if you've got an IP or a trope or genre that's really recognizable and familiar with an audience. But in this case, I just think it could have made it a little bit confusing. One thing I would say is I really love the presentation style of this one. I thought doing the voices and getting into the character, I thought was really lovely and showed a huge amount of passion and enthusiasm for your own work. So I thought that was great.
All right. If anyone else, I'm looking for a waved hand. If not, we'll buy the time and move on to the next one. Watching for that waved hand. Your chance is gone. All right. Next up, we are looking at Nutcracker and the Mouse King Ride by Jiawei Qin. There you are.
I'll go first on this one. So again, kind of mirroring our earlier kind of comments was don't apologize for anything. Don't say, oh, I wish I had more time to do this or that. I think it was great. The phase that you're in is called kind of like a massing model. So it gives us a sense of the space without having to do the color full detail design. So it really did give us it gave me anyway, a really good sense of the space within the whole thing. And I think it was pretty well executed in terms of show set design and all that. I think the main thing was I would have liked to have heard more about your target audience, because it did feel, it's very close to the source material. I've not seen the Nutcracker in a very long time, and I've only seen little bits of snippets of the original story and stuff. But it seemed very, very dark, but it almost had like a very kids-like vibe, especially when you get into the character design that I saw. It was just, there was a little bit of disparity there. But basically just, I think about your target audience and then kind of hone in on that if you choose to develop it, and it would make it a bit more of a stronger concept to us. But yeah, other than that, really great work. Continue on.
I remember it as being super cute and well developed from a ride layout and show set and 3D modeling standpoint. But I also recall that I didn't quite understand some of the action as we went downstream. I think I understood the basic premise of it, but it started to feel a little bit complicated as we moved forward. And if I recall it, it didn't really have an ending that was, an ending that would leave everyone coming into the station clapping or laughing. You need that kind of like, and this has been a weakness, by the way, at Disney for the first 30 years, that some of the attractions have had these kind of limp endings where you're waiting for something to happen, like Pirates of the Caribbean, arguably the greatest attraction ever built, or most classic in any case. And yet the ending of it is a little bit weak. So I recall having that feeling about this attraction, that you wanted something that was like, would make everyone laugh or everyone clap coming back into the station. It was super cute. I love the ride vehicle.
I thought it was really well thought out, this particular attraction. I thought you put a lot of effort in. I thought it was wonderful that you had a personal connection to the story that inspired you to do this. I thought that, in comparison to other attractions, you put this together yourself. It wasn't a team of individuals. I was very impressed with the fact that you took the SketchUp model to the level that you did the music along with this, that you articulated where you saw screens, where you saw animatronic figures, how you thought the show set would work. I was really, pleased with the sense that you looked at this holistically. I think there are elements where you could advance that in the future. And I think another thing I really want to commend you for is, not being a native speaker and tackling what you wrote and how you spoke is like fantastic. I spend a lot of my career working in Japan and China, and I thought you did an absolutely sensational job. And I think it's really impressive to articulate what you did creatively, not only in your native language, but another language. It's just like really impressive and very cool. So thank you very much.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Lewis said there, like when you first jump into this, it can be sometimes a little hard to figure out what was trying to be said. It would really benefit from somebody to proofread it due to the language issue. But when you like pull it apart, every decision you made was extremely thoughtful. Like nothing happened by accident. It's not like blah, 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 and magical happened. Like you made very specific choices in very specific places that reimagined what might feel like a familiar story in a fairly new way. And that was pretty exciting. You know, every time you presented it, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I've seen the Nutcracker maybe 10 bajillion times. And there's always some similarities to how the stage or television performance is presented. But this was really fresh. There were some really great original ideas in there. The transitions, the point of view that you take, how you shrink, all of those were really fascinating. My note here is, wow, this is a really good start to something awesome. But yeah, I found myself going, ugh, this is a mess. And then going through, I'm like, oh, it's not a mess. This is really fun. This is really interesting. So thanks for changing my mind.
Any others? Jamie, we haven't heard from you yet. I'd love to give you an opportunity to just chime in since we've got a couple minutes.
Hey, thanks. I would, but I did not thoroughly review that one. So to be fair, I'll hold my thoughts.
I put the pressure on. Just wanted to hear your voice. There we go.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, Nathan, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I just had one comment. I'm trying to stay neutral in all this, but there was one thing that I really liked, and there was at least one just fantastic painting that had a visual style, not unlike Mary Blair would do, but it was your own style. And I felt like if you had done all of the, sort
Did he
of
freeze
story-
on you guys too?
Yeah.
Did I freeze?
Oh, shoot. It had a visual style. We'll leave it at that.
Wait,
And
am I here?
we'll let him chime in on the next one. We're ready to move on to. Oh,
Am I back?
you're back.
Okay.
Hit it.
All right. I could see me, but not. And anyway, you guys were all there. What I saw was that there was that one storyboard you did that was in full color. There was at least one, but one that I really remember, and I felt like it was sort of like the way Mary Blair would do all of her storyboards. You kind of, it was like your own style, and I feel like if you had done the entire attraction in that storyboard style, that of your sort of visual, the way you paint, I should say. I feel like that would have just been amazing, and I feel like that visual language that you have, you should continue with. So I feel like that, like if you'd done 10 storyboards of that and just shown them in sequence, you almost wouldn't have even needed the animation. Anyway, that's my thought.
Well, you got a Pirates of the Caribbean and Mary Blair likeness there in the same review. Very, very good. Let's move on to Bella Cici and the Western Supernatural Stunt Show. Looking for a hand.
As I recall, this had an interesting kind of lead in and premise, but I don't recall that the show was particularly developed in terms of what would actually happen and go on in it. But there was some good character development in it.
I think there were some interesting ideas present. There was certainly a lot of focus put on the ZBrush model. And I thought as a submission, it was more powerful in terms of kind of putting together this prop than an overall show. So I think from a prop perspective, it's a great submission and a very interesting piece. As an overall stunt show, I felt as though it wasn't as powerful as the prop that was submitted.
Yeah, I agree. The prop was really well developed, and I loved the little the demonstration that you did as well. I think, yeah, just to go off on what everybody else was saying was, I think it was almost like you develop the characters and the props very, very well. And then it was kind of like, and this is the story. And then it went back on the prop a bit, or it kind of just wrapped up. So a little bit more development into the big kind of story beats of the actual show itself. And then also maybe putting some more audience interaction in there, seeing, if people could get in, if they could get involved in the actual story itself, maybe going up on stage and interacting with these creatures, or do they come down to the audience, that sort of thing, to make it a bit a little bit more immersive. Because I think there was one piece of concept art, if I remember, that you're kind of seated and looking at the stage there. Yeah, just thinking about that sort of stuff to develop this further would be really cool. But I think the premise of it, having grown up in Texas, there was lots of stuff that I was seeing that would have liked to have seen developed more. But I think really great work overall.
So maybe not being an American, I have a different kind of take on this. But Western shows are kind of 10 a penny in a theme park, right? They're so common, and I just really liked the different spin on this. I thought what it was using was a common, well-received theme, but it had a lilt in the story, and I thought it had some really good character development. True, it wasn't kind of fully developed as a whole experience, but I thought a kind of 10,000 feet view, I thought it was actually really interesting and could lend itself to an interesting take. So for me, I quite liked it, and I thought the things like the sidekick were quite nicely developed, and yeah, the prop was good as well.
Yeah, that's the same note I have. The supernatural part was a bonkers and really exciting twist, right? Like as Peter said, Wild West shows are a dime a dozen, but there was something really interesting and different about this. On the front end, you did some really nice research on what the look and feel of a traditional Western experience should look about like. But wow, you blew it on Skinwalkers. Here's a quote I have from the Smithsonian Museum of Native Americans. Skinwalkers are very specifically a concept that is not to be talked about or explored outside the Native American community. So when you are using, again, real people and a real culture, and Skinwalkers is a real part of their culture, you need to do the proper research so that your experience has the credibility that not only is it accurately reflecting the communities and the peoples you're talking about, but that it's appropriate to. And Skinwalkers is like on the top 10 no-go list. I'm sure there are lots and lots of other supernatural types of concepts that are welcome to exploration in this sort of environment. You just got to make sure that you choose one that is most appropriate. But it is at a high, like as Peter said, at a 10,000 foot view. This is like, oh, that's cool. That seems kind of interesting. I would like to go to this thing.
Great. Somebody else. All right. Well, thank you. We'll move on. Thank you, Bella. Great job. And now we're on to Stardust Arcade and Diner with Sophie Ruiz. Hi, Sophie.
Hello.
I just want to thank you because you invented something that I wanted to do as a kid and shoot laser beams out my hands. So thank you for that. And you actually achieved it, or it seems like you did anyway. So keep that close. Don't pretend it's just a project. It's a cool thing that the industry could use. I saw so many applications for it, both for projects that I've done in the past, but also I'm sure there's more to come. But just really, really well done in terms of trying to take something that so many people around the world think is imaginary and turning it into reality, and using this industry in order to do that. So it's played on some really cool technology that's already out there, but it just reinvented it in that sort of way. And it made me go, wow, when I was reading about it. The experience, I think, was great as well, but the technology and how you push that forward there, along with the costume design, kind of wrapped it up in a nice bow. Kind of what brought my attention to your project. So really well done, and congrats.
Thank you.
I thought the idea has a lot of merit and was from a business and from an operational standpoint was well thought out, and there's some really good ideas. And I especially like the laser outfit because it's, you know, for the first time, it's like a cool looking outfit in a laser game situation. I would push it a little bit further. I mean, you've got the operational armature of this that seems to make sense. But there were, you know, you have like a rotating turntable in there, I believe, which is a great thing. You know, you're going to spend a lot of money on that. That's going to be the big price tag in there. So you should use it all the time. You know, that should be a constantly evolving, revolving element of the space that provides constant surprise and change to the environment. And then, of course, I think the renderings themselves also, you know, need to be pushed. This is kind of the opposite of some other ideas where you have beautiful renderings, but you don't know whether it's a feasible idea or not. This seems like a feasible idea, but now I think you need some sexier visuals to make sure that people want to go there, you know, because there's so much competition. And I'm sure there are venues that are similar to this that are, you know, mixed use spaces. And, you know, at this point, people I think they think that they're taking a chance when they go into one of these because it might be good, it might not be good. So I think you really want to make sure that the space and the environment seduces you to, you know, to try it out at least once. And then the bells and whistles that you put inside will ensure that people come back again and again.
Thank you. I totally agree.
I mean, that said, it was remarkable. Like, this was just one person, right? Wasn't it? It is remarkable that there was this wider range of skill sets shown from one human being. And you built it, right? You didn't just draw a sketch and say, here's the thing. Like, you built functioning costumes and props. And I'm going over my list of notes for you, and they're all like so piddly, it's embarrassing. It's like, what's the anticipated cost per guest? How long is the anticipated guest experience? Because you kind of said everything else. Like, you laid it out as completely feasible. So now I'm just like getting into the weeds of what will the address be? One note I have, I cracked up. This started off as a Chuck E. Cheese feeling kind of place, then it escalated quickly into awesome. Then I have a note. This is no way to suggest that Chuck E. Cheese is not awesome. You've nailed a genre that exists, right? I'm going to have dinner and a show. It's for the whole family. But yeah, if now all we need to do is sell it, like Mr. Morris said, get a sexy marketing illustrator on your side and you're good to go.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
I think there's a really interesting thing that's happening in the industry at the moment where people are looking back at kind of tired old FEC concepts, mini golf or crazy golf, bowling, ping pong, you know, and going, right, how can we take these and revitalize them for the future? You know, in the UK, there's a huge amount of what was called kind of social gaming. So places like Putt Shack and Bounce and Flight Club, which I know that's kind of moving over to the US. And so I kind of felt like this was, you know, kind of harnessing that and using both kind of quite old-fashioned stuff, but making it really cool and kitsch with the design approach, but also bringing in a bit of immersive theater, a bit of secret cinema, a bit of Punch Drunk and that kind of thing, and kind of bringing that whole thing together. So I just thought it was really well done, and I did have this for me as one of the standout submissions because I thought it was so well rounded and so well thought through from a kind of commercial perspective. You know, it really, I kind of go, okay, yeah, this could be taken and pitched straight away. You know, just with a touch more development and the effort you went to with the laser tag. I did have a comment. I go, you could push that even further as well. It doesn't have to just be for a game. You know, the technology could be kind of shrunk down, and it could be a retail item that kind of gives you access. You can buy drinks with it. You can control things in the room with it. You can make the turntable spin. You know, who knows? But yeah, no, great job.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. Any other hands waving? If not, we're doing great on time, and I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to get their day back. We have 4 more to go, and just under an hour, so we're good. I'm not going to extend the time, but I would like to hear feedback now from any of the students on just any one of the projects that they worked on, or some of the feedback that they're getting. So we didn't give you really much chance to feedback, but if there's any quick notes or question you want to give back, we'd love to hear from you. Susan, you've been making all kinds of excited gesticulations with your hands about the projects. How is this going so far? Have you enjoyed what you're seeing and any of the feedback?
I'm loving it. I'm taking notes over here. I know Sophie, we're in class together, as is Stella and Reed and B. And Brendan is also in class with me, and he can't be here. That's actually who I'm texting over here. He's like, let me know when they get to mine, I'll hop in. And I'm like, okay, I got you. So I'm just like, okay, I'll be quiet. I love you all.
We are getting to Brendan. He's 3 away, so if you want to text him to show up, we'll accept him as one of our own if he finally graces us with his presence.
I'll let him know.
Any other overall feedback, thoughts on the process that they've gone through so far? Jamie, I know this has been close to your heart.
Yeah, I'll jump in with just a quick thought. I mean, all these notes are fantastic. For me, as somebody who's developing the curriculum, it's really kind of great to hear what everybody's looking for, what you're seeing and not seeing. All the projects, most of the projects that we've submitted, except for the one from, sorry, where I'm blanking on, Corinne's, The Alchemy of Earth. That was a senior thesis, but all the other projects we submitted are second-year students, so we're just kind of getting started, and all the projects were not really addressing all of the things everybody's looking for, but I love hearing those things, and as we move into junior level projects for all of these students, we're gonna be adding all those elements to them, and certainly by the time we get the thesis, all of this conversation is really helping me understand what thesis could be and what it should have. So I appreciate this entire process. Thank you.
Well, and to be fair, we're asking students, groups of 1 to 4 or 6 to do something that groups of 2,000 do in the real world. So it's like, wait, you didn't pull city permits for this, right? So in some ways, it's completely unfeasible that you would check off all of the boxes. One of the things I would like to hear from the students, particularly if you've never done a group project, ideally, a big part of the value of this is that you're managing a large scale, long range project, maybe by yourself with little professor interaction on your own, right? And what sort of skill sets in collaboration, conflict resolution, project management, do you understand how valuable that is? And can you articulate what you learned along those lines?
I mean, I can speak as someone, I know the teams are tomorrow, but I'm just kind of here learning, listening, that kind of thing. But us as a team, we're the British ones from tomorrow, and because we all came from different universities, we had no professors, we were doing it alongside our studies. Like time management wise, it was a great lesson, especially in that, because it was like, when can everyone meet? What time works best? When can we have this done? Because it was just like chaos otherwise, but we were able to figure it out. So yeah, it was invaluable.
Yeah, and hopefully add those lessons to whatever next group project you do.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hope in future group projects we're able to meet in person as well and just throw ideas at each other. But yeah, yeah, for sure. I definitely bring these across.
You'll be surprised to learn that time management and communication, that's not a problem in the real world at all, right? That never happens.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, you'll never have to work in multiple time zones with different companies in different countries. Language will
Metric
never be a
versus
problem.
Imperial, like never, that never.
Never be a problem.
Well, thanks everybody. That was a good little shake up and a breakup. So now let's move on to our final four here for today. The Time Watcher by Adrian Gutierrez.
If I could jump in real fast before everyone, I spoke with Adrian via chat, and he is literally on a moving van right now, on his way with his family to Orlando. And so he asked specifically that we could, record and give him feedback. And so he's very aware, even though he's not here, but he is committed to the industry because he's coming. So thank you.
Awesome.
For your comments.
Freddie, I'll just jump in there. I was really impressed with the amount of video and animation and sound effects, and this presentation for the Time Watcher was really impressive. The only criticism I could give is that I felt like on the actual ride, it was very much like a previs kind of ride through experience. There were quite a few moments on the ride section that were kind of long without a lot to see or do. And as all of us who work in the industry know, you don't pay for an inch of track unless the track is delivering somehow on the story, whether it's thrill, whether it's, whatever it is. So I just thought he could tighten up the experience. He could add show sets. There were quite a few things that could be added to really kind of fill in the experience. The other really point that I would just throw out here, conceptually, I think it would really work, but a lot of that track had zero support, right? It was just a line that went through, and cool conceptually, and it's great when you're thinking about an overall ride experience, but all of us know in the real world, you've got, tons of steel to support that. And oftentimes that's where show sets really come in, is to help hiding the actual track and taking advantage of that as structure. So really well done presentation. I thought that some of that could be tightened up.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I think it suffered from that thing that I mentioned earlier, which is the nonplussed kind of ending. So I think, having a more dynamic ending to it and making sure that all of the the metric distance of that is filled with, surprises and flinch moments, and really take advantage of that interesting track layout. I'm not sure how feasible, in looking at that and knowing what I know about coasters. I'm not a ride engineer, but I know that you do need to consider where the brake areas are and whether the vehicle can get out of the dip. If the ride comes to a stop, it needs to be on a high point, not on a low point. I'm not sure all of that was worked out, but there was something very interesting in there, which was the trick of the track switch, and that is a real device that's out there that's been manufactured. I don't know if it has launched yet into a park, but I know a year ago they were talking about that it was coming soon. I don't know what the pandemic had done to it. I can't remember which manufacturer had developed it, but it's a pretty cool trick. And so that needs to be pointed out, that this is actually a feasible component of the ride layout. So as crazy as it looks, it's actually a thing that you can get, that you can incorporate into your attraction.
I thought aesthetically and conceptually it was very impressive. I really enjoyed the fact that it was a unique and intriguing storyline that you haven't seen used in many other installations. I think that one of the challenges you have when you take it aesthetically to the level that you did, which is further than many other people did from a pre-visualization standpoint, is it opens you up to comments that the other folks aren't necessarily receiving because their project wasn't delivered as fully. So when we're looking at the track, we're analyzing at a deeper level than we are in some of the others, because that information wasn't available in any of the others, which speaks to the level you've taken the project to, which I think is is quite impressive. I think that there are some thoughts, you know, as you think about competing or elevating this idea, you know, is thinking about how you're going to deliver that. So because it's a new idea or a conceptual idea that's outside of intellectual property, and certainly you've developed this visually, you may want to think about helping the owner understand where they're going to market those assets, how they would merchandise those so they can see the whole picture. You know, we do a lot of intellectual property asset creation with the owners that we do in emerging markets. And you have to, when you go outside of an existing IP, many times you have to help the owner see how they're going to deliver an original IP holistically. So some of that articulation is important. I would say in your case also, you know, you've taken this beautiful conceptual idea, which is very atmospheric and emotive, and taken that to a very high level. But for instance, your script or your narrative is rather thin in comparison to some of the other submissions. So you focus very heavily on creating a visual statement and the previs, but that also left in terms of that selection, some of the other things less fulfilled. And I would just, you know, say that given that you've taken those elements to such a high level, if you can bring to the table your narrative and your other character development to that same level, it really goes a long way to selling your idea and kind of advancing that overall. And I would just say, you know, to the note that Tom and Theron have said before, you know, you have allowed in some ways, and I think this is a plus and a minus, depending on how you look at it. There is a tendency to, like, you know, think and God knows I've worked with Michael Bay. So, you know, think that every second in the gig, there must be something exploding and happening. I like the fact that the way this story is articulated, and it's about time, that there's space between the elements, that you've allowed some breathing room between experience, which I think is one of the things that I love about Pirates of the Caribbean. You know, there's an opportunity to have a spatial experience, but also having worked on Revenge of the Mummy, and you're using a coaster as kind of the vehicle for that experience, you want to make sure that you think about the pacing of that experience and how you want to deliver your story throughout that, especially in the case when you have an abstract concept, how you're going to carry that story through and articulate that throughout the experience, what the guest role is within that, how, even if you want it to be obtuse and more theatrical, how do you make sure that that experience has impact and value to the guest and reception as they go through it? So really fantastic job, really impressive, wonderful that you're, you know, going to join some team in Orlando and a bright future ahead. As I would say, really about everybody in the competition. You know, I mean, I think there have been a lot of great submissions, and you know, all of you guys have a bright career ahead. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I just want to agree with Lewis about the importance of those moments, downtime moments, or you know, less kinetic beats on an attraction, and very important on a coaster, because you know, you can just get completely turned upside down, and the faster you're going, the less you're paying attention to the story. I can guarantee that. So I want to underscore that is extremely important. And you're bringing up Pirates of the Caribbean. The moment before you go into the battle scene is one of the great examples of cinema brought to, you know, a move through attraction.
Now, one of the questions I wanted to bring up, and this is actually more for the organizers, operators, and than necessarily for the participants, in terms of how we define this. What are the goals and what happens? This was submitted as a individual entry, and actually 3 people worked on it. So we need some sort of a clarification on what does individual versus team mean. One of those was a professional voiceover actor. So is that the sort of thing where you just say thanks for the voiceover actor because it didn't necessarily contribute enough original content to be a team member? But the other was the music composer, and absolutely the sound effects and the music were as integral to the success of this as were the 3D models. So so that person should maybe have been listed as a team member. So that's up to us to make sure that when we put out the directives for what the submission requirements and parameters are, that we're super clear on what our definitions are, so the submissions can align with that.
Yeah, and there's more than one sort of proposal or submission that had that sort of issue. But we'll discuss that next week when we talk among the judges too. We can give that
But I am thrilled that this student knew to get a professional, right? Like, well done. That's how we do it. But just credit is what I was concerned with.
Well, good. Great job. And thank you so much for the great feedback. Moving on now to WATO or WATO with Rob Uttersprott.
Let's see. Hi.
I'll start. You know, I think I really thought from a technological standpoint, you know, what you proposed was really fantastic. I mean, I think it offers a lot of insights, or there are tracking opportunities for existing properties, or how designers can plan to utilize that project and you know, future elements. I thought you took a lot of effort to think through your motion, your function of those elements. I think that there's a lot of value in how that could be deployed and utilized in any variety of installations. On the counter side to that, I would also articulate to you that there are a number of maintenance challenges with the idea of what you've done and the idea to do some research and development and proof of concept. I mean, I think the nature of your project is taken to such a level that there's actually an ability to take it to proof of concept with someone, you know, to build it and develop it. You know, you do need to keep in mind that you know, guests are more destructive than Mother Nature. The ability to climb on it, sit on it, throw things at it is undeniable. And when you put something of this nature within reach of the guests, that it really has to be bulletproof. And there's also a safety component to that too. You know, the nature with an arm shifting down is a pinch point for a young child. So you'll need to think about some things like pressure pads or different things that are used on an elevator in terms of ensuring that there's not an injury with that. In your case, as I think about, you know, because potentially you have a business model with this product. There's someone out there, you know, like Peter at HoloViz, they manufacture. They have an ability where they could take what you've done and make this into a product, you know. And so I think one of the things you want to think about is how would you craft a business model to justify the increased value and maintenance. You know, like owners right now, that they think of wayfinding as this cheap shit that, excuse my language, I should, they can just slap a sign on a wall and be done with it. They don't understand the value of really kind of taking it to the next level.
Hello?
Sorry. So I think it would be just a thought, how could you justify the additional cost in creating that? Like, what kind of value or data information could you capture, or in showing the delta, like you were talking about, moving people around the park in different ways to leverage, you know, population control in the park. With the person that you partner with, can you create some kind of metric or model that would show them the value of making the investment in your product and how it would benefit them overall, would help you sell that? So great idea that you put forward, and good luck. I think there's an application for it. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I'll stop on there as well. Yeah, really great concept. Is one of those presentations where I spent a really good amount reading every single word, because I was like, you know, I feel like I'll see this, or we'll all see this pretty soon, hopefully anyway. As we were saying, that just that somebody invests in this properly and does it correctly. So my kind of notes on it were, especially for this competition as well, it would have been really cool to just see, just even sketches or something like that, just to show not seeing it work in a non-contemporary sort of way. So seeing it in another themed way. So maybe it's a themed tree that does it, that sort of stuff. Just to add that story element would have been really cool. But it's not. It's a small note compared to everything else. And then the other thing too was just the carbon footprint. So going back to cost and things like that, it's something that everybody's hopefully looking at now, is how much energy is this going to take, and how interactive is it with people? So how much, you know, is it going to be run by solar energy, things like that? I think you had touched on it a little bit, if I remember correctly, but a little bit more detail into that would be really great. And then the other thing as well is, I think in terms of adding again that guest value to it, rather than it just being something that is in the park that is kind of makes you feel like, you know, it's manipulating you in some sort of way, is maybe giving it something to kind of cater it to the guest themselves. So maybe the guest has some sort of characteristics. Maybe they like less scary things or something like that. So I don't know how fast things could move, but maybe if there's a good amount of guests, maybe you can control the population going in some certain way. So maybe opening it up to not only guest flow throughout the park, but also guest experience. It makes it very, very complicated after that, because obviously you have lots of people hopefully running through. But it's just something, I think, again, it just speaks to your projects, that if these are the types of questions that we're asking, it means it's a really great thing that you've started. So congrats.
Yeah, I have my checkbook ready to buy this right now. Thanks. So I was in
Let's talk
R&D.
about that.
Yeah. I was at R&D for 25 years, and this is my jam, right? This is exactly what you do. The fact that you partnered with an actual zoo, you certainly did your research in terms of prior art on this. Like this is so credible in terms of the functionality, the need. So now the next phase is partner with who your end user might be, which is where you would talk about adding the story elements and the like. And also, this is your second language, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my third.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you presented a project so rich, so deep, so detailed, technology-wise and creative-wise in your third language, like everything about this was right on track, and it's just ready to go to the next phase.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to add, sorry, Peter, I just wanted to piggyback on that, like your third language, man, dude, that's so impressive. Like kudos to you, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's everybody in Belgium speaks 4 languages.
Yeah, I'm pathetic.
So I kind of thought this was I suppose a presentation of two halves. There was the actual presentation format and the product, and I thought they were both equally brilliant. Like the way you presented it and the thoughtfulness of the commerciality of it and how to convince an operator, I thought was really good. The way you produced motion videos and kind of placed them in within the setting of the scene was really good. You know, just talking about the presentation, one of the hardest things to sell is an item that a client doesn't think they need because they've got signage that already works. Things are pointing, so I'll just follow that. So you really have to kind of bolster that with facts and partnerships and data, and you've already done that. That's great. What a great first step. So I think to kind of do that and doing more of that is the right thing to do. The product itself, again, I think it's great. You know, there's probably a lot of people who thought, do you know what, well, we'll just do some digital signage that changes and we'll just put a big kind of monitor. It's the kinetic nature of it that I think is lovely, and also the subtleties of the way that the kinetic elements then blend into the digital, I think is really, really nice. So when one of the arms disappears, it then becomes part of the digital, then kind of pops out the other side. That's a really clever subtlety that's kind of fundamental to making your product feel unique over other things. The one thing I would just probably talk a little bit more about or have a think about is what happens if you're a group of people walking up to a sign when it changes. So if it's pointed that way and then goes no. So you know, maybe just a PIR sensor or some kind of camera sensor that kind of does the change when there's no one there or when it's a kind of a smaller crowd, something like that.
Thank you.
I was going to say as well, just a question for you, Rob. Have you seen Theo Jensen's work, the artist Theo Jensen?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, check him out, because his whole premise behind his artwork is really great. He basically creates these beasts, is what he calls them, strand beasts, I believe.
Yeah, the strand beasts. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you didn't know.
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
I just when I saw your movement, I immediately thought of him. But yeah, glad you've seen him before.
Yeah,
so that's it.
Part of it is inspired by him.
Well, great job, Rob. Thank you very much for sharing it with us. And it's time to move on to the on the road, making great time for us, Brendan Asaf and the Creep and Sign Club. We appreciate you being here, man. Oh, he logged off.
His break ended. He had to go back.
Oh, shoot, we missed him. What a
I
bummer.
have the question.
Oh, good. Yeah, if you've got a question, we'll follow up with that. So I'm bummed he couldn't be here. Any first comments? Who's going to go first?
Sorry, which one was it? The one you.
Sorry, it is the Creepenstein Club.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's an immersive horror comedy dining and nightlife venue.
That's what it is. Yes, yes, yes.
I thought it was an interesting blend of ideas. It has the potential to be fun, scary, or potentially both. I would say from my perspective, when I look at it, I felt like I was imagining a lot of the potential or how those functions could play out. I felt as though it wasn't particularly clear and how the presentation was articulated. There was not a real sense of character interaction or dialogue or a plot reveal. I didn't understand necessarily what the substantive interactives were. For me, I got the sense the narrator, the presenter, kept telling me how cool it was going to be, but never really told me anything that was happening to understand what was happening that would be cool. It was kind of pitching it as being cool, but with no sensibility of telling me what was going to be cool. I think there are some elements when I think of parallel experiences like the Jekyll and Hyde Club or Beetle, the Beetle Club, that I can get a sense of what that experience might be. I thought it was interesting that you had included the secret lab, but beside it being a horror themed club, I didn't necessarily understand if you can't be 21, it's not a draw for you to go there. It kind of limits the family. But if you're a young person, that would make sense. I thought that there was not necessarily as much story even in the club part as there was in terms of what you were doing in the previous part. So I think what I would emphasize is, I think as a concept, the horror comedy and the way you've done it is a very viable, interesting, possible model. I think that there could be more articulation in how that story would work. I think it's viable in the marketplace. It's something people would be looking for, but it needs to be more well articulated and fleshed out from a story, interaction, the why of what's happening, what is actually happening, to help ensure that it would be realized and manifested.
Just to piggyback off that as well, just in terms of the meaning of story in this is, I agree with the observation that the space itself or the attraction itself, it's cool that it's horror, but there's not particularly a why. So I think with all IPs, especially just to bring up the IPs in theme entertainment, is every IP other than money, there is a reason that it's supposed to be in this park, or it's part of this park or part of this land and that sort of stuff. And we always have to address why, and why this experience specifically is helping that IP or that IP holder, and making it more of an enriching brand. That's kind of usually, hopefully, most of the goal from this. And I think, again, kind of going back to what Lewis was saying, just thinking a bit more about why, and why are we, what's our reason for being here in this nightclub that is horror themed? Why can't it be space themed or whatever? I really like the technical solutions you had and the guest interaction, because I think there was something that I written down specifically, which was that based on how fast you dance, the speed and the look of the whole thing changes, the set look and changes and stuff. I love that, and that's really great. But it's like, could that be different if I chose to go as a vampire, or if I went as a werewolf? If I had werewolf, would I have bigger feet, and would my steps have more impact on the dance floor? Things like that to make it more of, I think Peter brought it up earlier, the secret cinema, that sort of thing, is joining a class. So there was one I went to here in London for Stranger Things, and it was very, it was a subtle thing, but the class that you chose just slightly geared your experience to what you wanted. And I think that's what's great about horror and monsters, is there's so many different genres there without having to go specifically into an IP. But again, just that extra level of thinking will make your presentation so much better, and it'll sell the concept to us so much better to set it apart from other horror themed genres and other nightclubs as well. Because you know, there's so many nightclubs out there that are definitely not run by themed entertainment people. And if there was one like this that actually was done correctly to add that extra level, I think it'd be really successful. So.
Yeah, he did a great job on the front end of sort of his homework on the need for this. You know, what is the state of the industry right now of escape rooms, of nightclubs, of Halloween or horror themed things. So we started off in a really good space where none of us are questioning, could the world use this? Yes, I think we all started with absolutely the world could use this. And then he talked about what the this was. So I appreciate that he put us in that frame of mind right off the get-go.
Okay,
Oh, go on.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, sorry, I had to step away for 2 seconds, so I might be repeating what other people have said. I liked it. My issue was there was probably too many genres. It was horror, but there was lots of subgenres that were all kind of mixed in. There was like the classic monsters. There was a kind of secret lab. What else do I have written down? Possessed antiquities, out of control robots. It kind of got a little bit kind of confusing for me. Is I would kind of choose one or two, or one with a bit of a twist, and then really just go for it and expand that particular world. And I just thought as well, like, it would, if you did go down that route and you had the kind of the possessed robots or the out of control robots, that they could potentially become part of a performance within the dance floor. So doing some kind of cabaret style acts, that kind of thing, just to bring a bit of life and personality to it.
Oh, Susan, we want to hear you so much.
I'm so sorry. I was gonna say the one question that I have from him, because I was like, give me a solid one here. Any specific complaints or ways that he can improve moving forward from this? What skills should he keep and what skills should he improve on? That's his one.
Oh, he's asking for it all. Go ahead, Thomas.
I was just gonna say it's a really big question. Like, I could see everybody's faces going like, all right. No, I mean, it's I'm still learning. Everybody else on this call is still learning. So that's the end of that one. I think it's something that you will always continuously get better at. So all skills whatsoever. And that's what's great about this industry, is so many different hats. So you know, improve everything is the short answer. But in terms of specifically, I mean, it's I think it's a question back to him, and I wish he was on the call, was what does he want out of the industry? What does he want out of this project? What does he want to improve on? Because you can hit everything, but there's you know, I think passion is a part of it that really, what's he passionate about? Did he like making the story? Did he like making the model? Did he you know, did he like, would he like to have collaborated with people more on this? You know, is it the teamwork, is the people that draw him to the industry, that sort of thing? So it's a big complex question, I think, but just I think the short answer is it takes a little bit of looking back at yourself and what you want and what makes you passionate about why you're doing this, and go from there, and you know, keep doing these sort of things to help you know, gain skills and get feedback and yeah, keep moving forward. So yeah.
Yeah, and again, like, nobody does all the things, right? Like there's no expectation that any one human does all the things. So maybe an understanding of where his gaps may be, what he's super good at and what he's super interested in, hopefully they have the same thing. And then figure out best partners to collaborate with to develop a fully fleshed out idea.
And I would say, you know, I think this is more a note to Jamie. You know, the Ringling presentations were obvious that people were standing in front of a screen versus the way other presentations were done. I think in some cases that made the presenter stilted. You know, I think the way it was pitched as a project assignment, which we'll all talk about as judges, you know, in another session. But I think the notion that all the Ringling presentations were done in front of a screen, kind of in some cases reading from a script, was different than necessarily than the more organic approach of others. So I think that influenced the way some of the students spoke about their work. Brandon's case, I think he was busy pitching the concept, and I would say from this to, depending on where his aspirations lie, I felt as though from a balance standpoint of kind of focusing in on articulating beyond how cool it was trying to make sure that people understood what his idea was after he pitched the elevator statement that got us excited, was making us understand the rationale of the idea. It's not a criticism, it's just a question of making sure that the people understand the concept fully, so.
Well, I think also, to be quite frank, the illustrations really needed to help sell it because it's not a new idea. Jekyll and Hyde, for example. And, I needed to feel like it was a place I really wanted to go, and I didn't quite get that. It made kind of left brain rational sense, but it didn't make right brain emotional. It didn't speak to me. I was kind of hooked at first, expecting to see something really different, but I didn't see that. So the ideas are good. It seems like a feasible idea, but the visuals really need to bring you in and sell it.
Great, thanks everybody. There are very few constants in life, things that you can count on, and one of them is Stella Pappy sitting there waiting patiently. Opportunity. She is our last presentation today. She's the remaining one for Remaining Ashes Escape Room. We're excited to give you feedback, Stella.
Well, it definitely had the best prop and element that could be turned into a cool merchandising piece with the key. I thought that was beautiful. I always, am leery of dystopian stories, but I think this was, has enough appeal that it would be appealing to many parts of the public. But I think you have to be careful with the dystopia. It always sounds good in a story meeting and even in a pitch, but the way the general public actually responds to that kind of thing has been very mixed over time. But I thought the visuals, the presentation was slick. It was very good looking. I don't recall, or I recall being a little bit confused somewhere between the third and the fourth stage. There was some continuity, I think, missing in there. But with those beats filled in, I think it's a pretty good pitch.
Thank you.
I really liked the idea and thought it had potential as an accessory to several museum, experiences, such as the 3 Degrees experience at Singapore's Gardens by the Bay. And to Tom's, point, you've taken a powerful creative, environmental, and social message, that's meaningful to the population, and, brought a sense of how those challenges face humanity, and I applaud you for taking on that subject, and how to try to create a meaningful call to action, and ultimately when you think about that, when we take the entertainment component away, that is our superpower as an industry. When you think about it, if we can take experience that results in a call to action in humans, that's really the most impressive thing we can do as people. Can we inspire them to take action? But also, as Tom mentions, when we talk to the bean counters and the marketing people, that can be challenging to get the masses. So it's a question of where is that audience? How are you going to put that together? And it's not necessarily a theme park message. It may be a question of where are you going to create and articulate that. And while I understood it's an escape room, and the functions are the result of solving a series of questions in terms of opening the series of portals, there were some points, like Tom mentioned, where I didn't fully understand kind of going through the whole thread. Like I got the setup or the exposition, but I didn't necessarily understand maybe the plot reveal or the cause effect or what the specific interaction was, which when articulating a complex idea like this helps really to kind of bring it together. You know, it's like the 3-act play. We understand, or the journey of the hero. You know, you understand the sensibility of what's happening, who the character is, what that setup is, what the challenge is, the denouement and the return. I think in your case, especially articulating a complex message, helping people understand where they fit within that cycle in the story is important to kind of bring it home.
I think I would have liked to have seen some development of the game path and some of the escape room elements. You know, there are hundreds of escape rooms out there that just have random puzzles in, and they can kind of get away with that because it's all kind of under some kind of just generic umbrella theme. But because you had such a strong story and a significant story that was there to inform and inspire, etc., the interactive elements become super critical to do that. And so that is one of the biggest creative challenges. So for me, it felt like a little bit of an elephant in the room. It was like, we kind of have this story, but we're going to dance around how we're going to truly tell that story with the interactive elements. So I would have liked to have seen just a little bit, not everything, not every kind of tiny crumb, but just some of the bigger pieces. And also, maybe I just didn't understand this bit, but there was a kind of a comment about the guests being able to choose a year that they kind of get transported to at the start and have a kind of a little bit of agency. And I was just interested to kind of understand how that would have been fulfilled within a kind of fixed environment. So, you know, if we're going to use screens, or it's a kind of window gag or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, one of the interesting opportunities in an experience like this, unlike something that you might be pitching to an end partner, this is an opportunity to showcase your skill sets, you as an individual, you as a group. And that was really hard to pull out of this. Like, what skill sets was this project specifically trying to communicate? A lot of the imagery was stock footage, so it wasn't illustrations or photos that this person put together themselves. As Mr. Cliff just mentioned, I didn't see any gameplay, so that wasn't necessarily a skill set that was featured. And I didn't see any illustrations or indication of what the actual guest experience would be. Where do I stand? How do I interact with someone else? So at a high level, it's a fun idea. I loved the key. That key prop was a really interesting and a fairly novel element. But then it was hard to envision what the actual experience looked like on the one hand, and then also what unique value does this contributor bring to my team, right? If I want to hire you, it's not clear what skill set is the strongest for this person. Now, when you're selling to, you know, a local strip mall and you want to put your escape room in there, they don't care about that, right? They're just, so this is suitable for that sort of environment. They just want to know what the idea is. But when you have the opportunity to participate in an experience like this, where it is all about showcasing your individual expertise, you do want to make sure that that's well communicated.
All right. Yeah, I agree with everything everybody's saying about the gameplay. I was actually more kind of thinking in terms of my comments anyway, about this story and the role that we are playing in this sort of story. I mean, the main thing when I saw this was, and I finally got your, you know, the kind of the presentation, the concept behind it. And I think the concept's really great, and congratulations for trying to tackle a really complex issue. I mean, I saw this as something that would probably tour around a museum, I think somebody said earlier, or some sort of exhibition, I think. But I would like to say, just be careful about putting so much fantasy or fantasy style on something so real, something that is such a real idea, because it makes people go, oh, okay, the experience is over now. What I kind of almost wanted out of this project was almost like, you know, we start off in a, we spend a lot of gameplay in the current world, and then, yeah, you know, you have a good way or a bad way to go about things. But I was a bit confused about kind of that narrative of, you know, if we go the bad way, are we allowed to go the good way? And, you know, some people have different ideas of what's good and what's bad, and that's what's so complex about, you know, human decisions and human actions, especially right now in terms of this issue. So I mean, I almost kind of wanted at the end of it to come outside and it might be the really artistic sort of like way out there sort of way of thinking, but what if you just came out of it and it was a mirror or something where it was the real world, and the escape room starts there. We're escaping an issue. We're not escaping this experience that we paid $10 to go into. The experience, I think the thing that you're trying to get people to get out of this experience is what happens after the experience, not so much the fun or team play that they have here. That most people try to sell in an experience. So there's a lot of things that you could have really tackled here, and I think you just started to barely. But I think just pushing it past that into what your target audience is, what the point of this is, and if you can't sell it on a money level, look at it as a changing the world sort of level, because there might be somebody out there that wants to change the world with you and invest in this. So and if you do it right, you'll sell that to them. So it's a complex things. I tried to sum it up, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
I think if you guys don't, I just want to add one statement that's kind of broad to everybody and all the projects. First off, there's a lot of really talented people here talking to you guys, offering you different opinions. And I want to emphasize that to all of you. All of us come from different backgrounds. Art is subjective. All of us have different opinions, and you have to take that with a grain of salt. Don't be insulted by somebody's remark. Don't get overly emphatic about something. Take it and put it into your toolbox and your skill set, and think about it. This competition in particular, which we're going to talk to Nate about next week, is a little unclear in some ways. These aren't really all competition submissions. Like I participate in some other events that are specifically geared toward everybody following the same set of rules and submitting the same kind of information. It's a little unclear in this. Some people have submitted school assignments. Some people did this outside on their own time. Some people did dark rides. Some people did one thing. I think don't take what anyone's said in that context, like they're looking at your assignment and they've given you a note on it. It's really not what you set out to do when you did the project in the first place. So I don't want it to diminish your enthusiasm and what you're doing. Take the note for what it's there. Everybody's here to kind of contribute to your growth and where your career is, headed forward. And as the competition evolves or other competitions you participate in, just make sure you follow what the creative brief is. Everybody that's here has worked really hard to understand what is the owner looking for. When Steve and Peter and Fred and Tom and MK and Theron have, Peter deliver a project, the owners have a set of criteria that they're looking for. There are a set of things that all of us as professionals in the industry are accustomed to needing to deliver. And everybody's giving you advice on that. Just because you got that note today doesn't necessarily mean you didn't do it. It's really not part of maybe the nature of what your submission is. And just take it as folks that really want to help your growth and your development and insights, and ask any questions that you have. I mean, I'm certainly available if you guys have questions afterward. Any way that we can help. This is meant to benefit you guys, and just don't take it negative in any way, given how this is structured.
Well said.
Yes, I was planning a little outro, but to that same effect. And Louis, I just really appreciate your heart, and each one of the judges. Their time here is valuable. That I don't think they're worried about that. I think they came here specifically to help new voices in the industry become great. And I love that. I'm actually a little chilled by it. So well done, everybody. Any further instructions we need, Nathan, or are we free to go?
I think that's mostly it. I will say that Jason Sorrell passed on a message because he just was hired on with Universal Creative. And he wanted everyone to to know that because he's starting the new position that he wasn't able to make the session, but that, he was extending his or giving an opportunity. If anyone wanted to reach out to him for individual feedback sessions, he would be happy to talk with any of you. So take that opportunity.
All right. Well, each one of you, we appreciate your time and very excited to go into the next session. I think we have another one tomorrow. So appreciate you all and have a fantastic day.
Thank you, everyone.
Adios.
Thank you so much. Thank
All the
you.
best. Thank you.
Thank you.